Hi, everybody. It's me, Mr. Moohead, on my 60th birthday. And I have to come on here and do a mea culpa because I predicted that the Celtics would win game one. How could I have been so wrong? And why on my birthday? Well, the birthday part of it I can't change. I'm 60 today, 6-0. I never even thought about the gravity of 60. And then when I saw my man boobs, I realized the gravity of the situation. How is everybody today? Today, I got to tell you how I got it so wrong. And a lot of people in the press were saying that this wasn't going to be a series and that Boston was such a long shot. And I took a little bit of a different view. I really thought that Boston would kind of come out in game one because they had gotten the overall number one pick in the draft. There were a lot of, fumes that they were running on. They come off a hard 7-game series with the Wizards. And I knew that fatigue would play part of into this. I thought it was going to set in on Friday, not on Wednesday. Let me tell you why. It's to play on emotion for a game is an entirely possible thing. To come back 2 days later after the huzzah is gone is a lot harder. Defending your home court on game one because the raucousness of the crowd, the familiarity of the surroundings, and all that positive vibe is usually the game teams hold with more ease. Game two is generally more of a struggle. But it didn't happen that way. Why not? Well, what I can tell you is this. I was probably as surprised as Brad Stevens and the rest of the Boston Celtics. Kudos to a game plan by Ty Lue. This is a Cavaliers team that we haven't seen. Now you're saying, it's the same players. But the first half of this game, the Cavaliers did something that we haven't seen them do. And that is go right at the basket and forsake the three-point shot to get the strong two-point shot and to play physical basketball, rebound the basketball, and play really tough, meaningful defense. And it's not that they slowed the ball down. It's not that they played tortoise ball because they scored 117 points for the game. They scored 60 points in the first half, and they did it virtually void of three-point shooting. They shot a very high percentage, but something changed that fooled the Celtics and forced the Celtics to play on their heels. And I think I figured out what it is. I think the matchup between Avery Bradley defending Kyrie Irving is a good matchup for the Boston Celtics. It's one of the reasons why I thought the Cavaliers would only score 96 points yesterday. Kyrie has been having trouble shooting the ball, and Avery Bradley is a tremendous on-ball defender. And during the course of the regular season, Kyrie Irving had his share of problems against the Celtics because of Avery Bradley. But Ty Lue recognized that and did something that the Celtics never saw coming. In the half court, it was LeBron bringing the ball up the floor. And instead of doing the little weave and giving the ball to Kyrie and letting him dribble, instead, the high screen action kept isolating LeBron. And LeBron was content to stand 40 feet away, 38 feet away from the basket and get ISO'd on either Al Horford, on Kelly Olynyk, or whoever else was in the game, and get a running start at the basket. And there was nobody athletic enough to be able to stop him from getting to the hole. 15 points in the first quarter, and virtually all of them on clean layups. Because before the game, I think Brad Stevens stated for the record that to double anybody on this team was a disaster. To double LeBron James just leaves somebody open. And the surprising part of this is it would seem that the Cavaliers played right into Boston's hands because Boston wanted the Cavaliers to be covered on the three-point shot. It seemed that Brad Stevens feared the open threes more than anything else. And I think the reason he felt that way is he knows his team is not a great shooting basketball team. And if the Cavaliers come down and throw up threes, they have to match with twos and great defense. And the best way to do that is to force the Cavaliers rather than doubling up on a LeBron. You take your chances. Avery Bradley, mano a mano, can handle Kyrie Irving. But, hope that LeBron settles for outside shots. Hope that LeBron's having an off game. And don't let him get into the paint, double him, and let him use his radar to find open players on the wing. You eliminate the three that way, and that way you're playing their twos against our twos and their defense against our defense, and it would seem to give Boston a better chance of winning. Problem is that nobody stopped LeBron. There was no rim protection. The guy who was the hero 48 hours before, Kelly Olynyk, looked like a doofus. He looked like he didn't even belong on an NBA floor. It was embarrassing. And it got to the point where he was passing up open shots because he couldn't drop anything. In the opening 3, 4, 5 minutes of the first quarter, Boston had at least 4 wide open threes and clanked each and every one of them. The only guy who made one in the initial part of the game was Avery Bradley, who usually shoots very well against the Cavaliers. But the other guys, nothing. There's just clank city. And then you had Isaiah Thomas. The only thing I was right about is that he appears to be tired. A lot of his jump shots are coming up short off the front rim. Even he rimmed 2 free throws out when he had an opportunity to shoot 3 free throws on his famous 3-point force them to foul you kind of move. And he missed 2 of the 3 free throws. He never got engaged as far as the game was concerned. A few closes at the rim, but I got to be honest with you, when he got into the paint, he was hesitant. It didn't look like he was there to finish. I can guarantee you that he's going to be told to finish in the next game, and we'll see whether he's capable of doing it, because a number of times that he tried early in the game, he was just hurling the ball up, and it really looked more like Kay Felder than it did Isaiah Thomas. He didn't have the hang time. He didn't seem to have the body control, and that all says fatigue to me. This is more minutes than he's ever played in one season in his career. But the Cavaliers forced them on their heels, and they did it with defense. On the defensive end, they just barnstormed. It was the same strategy that led to our last win in Boston. It was, a very similar final score that Isaiah Thomas couldn't get started in because we just kept just blitzing him and forcing the ball out of his hands. And nobody until the second half, the third quarter, when Jay Crowder finally started to hit threes, and it's the first shots he's hit in the playoffs. I got to be honest with you. He was horrible in the last series, and he had wide open looks, and he knocked down the wide open looks. We saw Gerald Green knocking down wide open looks, but, and the belief is that Gerald Green's going to get more minutes now. But Gerald Green, is a knucklehead and doesn't play defense. You saw Isaiah Thomas yelling at him on the court. And he's also the king of the bad shot. He is Ricky Davis waiting to happen. He's a volume shooter. He's streaky as hell. He's a lot like Jamal Crawford in that regard. If he catches fire, and you saw it last night, he can just hit a multitude of shots. But if he's off, he's a liability defensively, and he doesn't know when to stop shooting the basketball. So I imagine we'll see more Gerald Green coming off the bench because they need to match the Cavaliers' firepower. But they were back on their heels from the very beginning of the game, and it's because of LeBron. He was just playing downhill. It was a lot like, gosh, I remember decades ago for Browns fans, when we were playing the Houston Oilers in the playoffs, and it came down to an overtime, and it was It was either an overtime or the end of the fourth quarter. For some reason, I remember it as an overtime. Maybe it was just the end of the fourth quarter. The entire final drive of the game was giving the ball to Kevin Mack. Just keep giving it to him. And the Browns had worn out the Oilers' defensive front four and just literally ran the ball into the end zone to win the football game. It was like nothing but number 34 straight up the gut, all off tackle. I mean, it was like dominant, but it was playing downhill in essence. That's what it looked like to me last night. It looked like the Celtics were slow. They were tired, and they came out thinking that the Cavaliers were going to kind of feel them out, and instead of getting the feel out, first quarter, what you got was the Mike Tyson first round, where he comes out the seek and destroy mission, and the Cavaliers came out playing assertive, aggressive basketball. And it was like the Celtics were trying to find their comfort zone, and they were clearly tired. Now, fast forward to the third quarter, which is the only reason for concern, really, in all of yesterday's game, when the Celtics started putting better possessions together. And part of it has to do with, look, I'm sure the Cavaliers hadn't played or really run any scrimmages for 10 days, and maybe they were a little bit gassed and a little bit winded, and they couldn't keep up that pace. So, the Cavaliers have been very good during the course of the season of controlling their pace during the course of basketball games. And that's probably what they were doing. But they weren't stepping out and stopping Crowder from shooting the three. They just kept daring him to shoot it. And we got into too many tit-for-tat trading basket scenarios, which is not what you want to see against the Boston Celtics. The Celtics have a great crowd, racist crowd, but a great crowd, except when they leave with about 6 minutes left of the game. And you don't want them in the game. You want to be able to hear a pin drop inside that place. And the early part of the game was a real killjoy for Boston fans. And that's the way you got to do it. Now, they're going to be ready this time. You're not going to surprise them a second time this way. But they're going to have to learn to pick their poison. And this is the hard part about playing the Cavaliers. If you're going to go ahead and play a guy like LeBron James one-on-one, mano-a-mano, you better have somebody who can cover him. And it can't be Al Horford. It can't be an old guy who really lacks, the lateral movement. But what we saw, Olynyk has no lateral movement. And they just kept trapping them at the top of the key. And everyone else was paying attention to their man, and there were just lanes for LeBron to drive through. I would not at all be surprised if the Boston Celtics set up a defense in which, rather than worrying about blocking shots, people are going to try to get LeBron frustrated by trying to draw charges, stepping in front of him, that kind of thing, to try to coagulate the lanes that way. And LeBron's going to have to pass the ball before he gets too far into the paint. But if Cleveland starts making threes, then you have a real problem. And here's another problem for the Celtics. The Cavaliers didn't have a very good shooting game in terms of their three-point shooters. First of all, Channing Frye didn't play until the very end, until garbage time. And I think part of the reason for that is because Cavaliers wanted to stay small and defensive. I don't think all year that I saw Shumpert and J.R. Smith on the floor at the same time, but we did last night. And Tristan Thompson was an absolute beast, but small but active. Kevin Love was extremely active in the first quarter, and then coming back with three-point shots and presence in the paint. And he was just burying Marcus Smart earlier in the game. Marcus Smart fouled out of the game and was trying to be a complete dick during the course of the game, trying to instigate trouble. And I expect to see more of that in game 2 on Friday. The question is the amount of energy that they expended to basically get a 28-point lead down to, I think maybe they had it down to 13 or 14 at the best. That took a lot out of them in the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter. And I think Brad Stevens realized at that point, he got to get these guys out of the game, because if he left them in there, they would have no gas whatsoever for Friday because this game's coming up to tomorrow. There just isn't that much resting time. And that's the advantage of sweeping your opponent like the Cavs have done 2 rounds as opposed to going 7-game series and playing deep into series like the Celtics have. Now, beating them up on the boards, all of the hustle statistics in the first half of the game came out the Cavaliers' way. And I think the Celtics were just tired. I mean, and I don't think they knew what hit them. They didn't expect, and I didn't either. And you didn't either. Honestly, folks, you didn't either. If I would have said to you, the Cavaliers are going to abandon the 3-point shot and they're going to put their heads down and go to the basket and they're going to draw fouls and they're going to make their free throws and they're going to out-rebound the other team 42-28. And if I would have told you all that and we're going to beat them with the 2-point shot, you'd say, you're crazy, Mr. Moohead, because Boston averages like 12 or 13 3-point shots, makes a game. We can't win with just 2-point shots, especially on the road. And there you have it. I was flabbergasted watching it, and I'm sure from the bench, Brad Stevens is like, holy shit, if they can beat us this way, how many other ways are there for this team to beat us? It was a surprising strategy, to say the least. But Kyle Korver made one shot. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and he had a couple of corner threes, which he's usually deadly on. He was 1 for 6 from the floor, so he didn't do dick. J.R. Smith didn't even shoot the basketball except for the opening layup of the game. J.R. didn't shoot. Shumpert made a 3 in the first half of the game, but nothing at all from there. Kevin Love was superb, and that was in the second half when they decided, well, maybe we should start doubling LeBron, and then K-Love was open and he started burying threes. But the guys who you would think of as being the big 3-point weapons, Kyrie Irving never got off the schneid, only 11 points. And so he didn't have a shooting day. Korver didn't. Fry didn't participate. So you look, and LeBron wasn't shooting threes. So the real question becomes, if the Cavaliers start shooting threes and making them, Boston has no chance to win either. The way Boston has a chance to win is by playing good defense and the Cavaliers going through stretches where they go cold, especially on the Boston parquet. That's their chance of winning. And this has to be a very rude awakening. And no, I don't expect the Celtics to give up. Yes, I think you're going to see more of the hectic, chaotic, scrambling kind of play you saw in the third quarter. Because if they don't come out and win game 2, the series is over, folks. I mean, for the Boston Celtics, it will end that quickly. They have to play with that reckless abandon that they started throwing at us in the back half of the third quarter and the first part of the fourth quarter. And they're going to have to sustain it. And that means they're going to have to get to the free throw line. They're going to have to be the aggressive ones. And they're going to have to try to agitate the Cavaliers in any way possible. They tried to get Tristan Thompson thrown out of the game. Marcus Smart did his best for that, but he ended up fouling out. There is a picture on the internet of Isaiah Thomas clearly trying to grab Kevin Love by the ankle, which is disconcerting to say the least. But it's like I told you previously, if this shit starts up, you just break Isaiah Thomas's legs. You just bring in Dante Jones and you cripple him. And if that's the way they want to play, that's fine. But I expect to see more of that kind of stuff because talent for talent, player for player, they're not good enough. And you know that before that game, they came to Al Horford and said, you just came off a really solid series against Washington. You cannot let Tristan Thompson beat you like a drum. And like he has virtually every other time you've played against him. But sure enough, it was the same thing. It was like Tristan Thompson was the only man out there under the boards, and Horford was just being outmaneuvered laterally. And, Horford is a guy who has become kind of a step back shooter and a 3-point shooter as his career has evolved, but not anything down low physical in the paint. And he's really lost a step from a lateral defensive position. The The other thing is, if you're going to help against LeBron, who are you going to bring over? If you start bringing Avery Bradley over and they swing the ball to Kyrie Irving, then you're inviting Kyrie to have a 28-point game. And that could be dangerous for the Celtics as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is all more analysis of game one. I have no more of an idea what's going to happen in game two as I knew was going to happen in yesterday's game. But the fact of the matter is the Cavaliers just manhandled them. And Boston didn't look up to it. And if you're a Boston fan, you have to acknowledge that your team looked tired. And give credit to Brad Stevens and the coaching staff and the will of the players to suck it up and get their energy back in the back half of the third quarter. Whatever was said to them was heated. But you really wonder, if the Cavaliers can keep game two close. And, we know that blowouts have been the order of the day in these playoffs. We've seen a lot of games that were very one-sided games. If the Cavaliers can stay close into the fourth quarter, you wonder if Boston is going to physically fold from fatigue. Because one thing I can tell you, they're going to come out in the beginning of this game with full energy. And if the game is still close at the end, the advantage definitely swings to the Cavaliers. I'm basically done with what I have to say today. Bradley Zimmer, I wanted to mention, the Indians are playing terrible baseball right now. They're not getting good starting pitching at all. They're not hitting in a timely way. Encarnacion looks terrible. Bradley Zimmer is getting his chance. Bradley Zimmer is going to be, now he's certainly not Russell Branyan, so let's be clear about that. Bradley Zimmer is an outstanding athlete. The question is going to be whether Bradley Zimmer can consistently make contact at the major league level at the plate. He can cover a tremendous amount of ground in center field. You saw him score from second base. I mean, when a guy scores from second and the outfielder has the ball in his glove before Bradley Zimmer touches third base, that's usually an instant hold the man up, stop, all right? But Zimmer came running through and beat the throw home. And granted, not the best outfielding arm in the world, but you would not normally send a player. He's got long strides. He's extremely fast. He's extremely athletic. And the ball will jump off his bat. He does have tremendous bat speed. You can see why this was the protected player, not Clint Frazier. And while we're doing that, why don't we look up Clint Frazier? And I know that a lot of people who listen to the program really felt that he was the guy who was going to be worth keeping. Let's take a look at him this year. And I know I'm going to be quoting statistics that, he's hit 6 home runs with 24 ribbies, so that's okay. He has, let's see how many times he has struck out. He has struck out 33 times in 138 at-bats, about once every 4 times at the plate. His batting average is a .261. He is playing at AAA level. And he's got 14 doubles, so he is flashing some power and hitting .261, which is not so different than what Bradley Zimmer was doing, mind you. His average had crept up to .292 because he had a hot week, but you saw the ball jump off his bat opposite field off the left field wall, and you saw the home run. He's got power. The question is, he strikes out a tremendous amount, as all power hitters do. The question is, can he adjust and adapt to big league pitching? They don't know him, just like they didn't know Tyler Naquin last year. The question is he going to be able to make the adjustments once teams make their pitching adjustments to him? But it was fun watching a young guy getting an opportunity to do that. Although the rest of the game was thoroughly unsatisfying, as the Indian season has been very, very unsatisfying up to this point. And again, we can say it's early on and all that happy horse shit, but you're looking at the logjam that is the American League Central, and you got the Twins at 19 and 17, the Tigers at 20 and 19, the Indians at 20 and 19, the White Sox at 17 and 21, the Royals at 16 and 23. Nobody, and we are approximately for the sake of argument, 36 games, with that about 40 games, about a quarter of the way through the season, and nobody separating themselves at all. The problem with the Indians is that we're 8-10 at home. We're 12-9 on the road, and I don't know why that should be, but it is. That's the way the season is starting out for the Indians, and it's not the best situation in the world. And we're getting pitching injuries early on, which isn't helping us either. And we're starting tomorrow a series at Houston, and Houston is unfucking beatable right now at 29-12 in the West, and they're running away right now with the West. So things are not going to get easier for the Indians playing in Houston. So not the best of times for the Cleveland Indians right now. Other than that, nothing much else to say. I'm not going to say anything much about the Browns at this point, except let the rookies get acclimated. Let's see what we got, and let's go from there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the birthday podcast of Moohead Radio. Back again, maybe tomorrow, but maybe not. Maybe I'll do a Saturday. Maybe I'll follow the Cavaliers schedule, because I like to be able to analyze these games after they're played, because I'm sure as fuck not good at predicting them before they occur. Until next time, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Have a good day.